So thank you, Mary. Thank you for being on my little podcast. My hope is that whatever you got to share, whatever you got on your heart, would help bless some of the folks that might check this out. It could be now. I know I've checked out people's podcasts and they've done them years later, and it was an awakening experience just to get that bit of information. So I'll tell the people how I came across your information. I don't know, I was thinking I was looking up super soldier stuff. I just hit
Yeah.
in super soldier into my podcast. There's two, but Tyler was one podcast guy, and another guy, I can't remember his podcast name, but basically you had like 3 or 4 podcasts with him,
Mhm.
and everything you said resonated with what I was thinking. I mean, even the more crazy things that I've thought about myself and other people that I've come in contact with, memories I'm not sure if they're mine, information that I thought was plausible, things that might be happening in the future. You answered a lot of those questions. You're matter of fact and you don't care, uh, you know, which I really appreciated. Um, you didn't hold back, which was awesome. And anybody who understands this space, they understand authenticity more than anything. So thank you for sharing your story already. And so, Mary, without further ado, I wanted to just give you the floor just to kind of, I guess, first off, tell us how you began to awaken. Is that a process or were you always awakened?
So for a little bit with my background,
Yep.
I do come from the Masonic Illuminati families.
Hmm.
I'm not a high level because I refused to take my oath when I was 17. There's processes to the whole thing, and when I was born here and the day I could talk, develop words and whatever, in this language of this time, I always said, I'm here to fight God's war. Didn't know what it looked like. Well, I kind of did. I knew I was going to die in the war, but that was part of it. And so we're all born with our memories, and they mind blank you at 4 years old. But I didn't get mind blanked because with the future process that the Illuminati wanted me for later, I had to have a lot of my mind intact. And they some of them knew who I was, but others didn't. It's been a journey. So I wasn't awake all the time, but then the real awakening happened when I was in the military. Um, I saw things and nothing made sense. I was fighting that war here, and things weren't adding up. But they tell you like you're the only one that can do this. You're special. Blah 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 blah. They feed a lot of people that in the military, and then you realize that yeah, you are the only one, but you're not working for the good guys. You're working for the bad guys, and that was a reality check for me. And so instead of like procrastinating right away in the military, I observed and watched because I was in the intel field, and I collected more information than like I guess every patriot that wants to try to save their country. I started hem hawing and going after the bad
Hmm.
guys, and of course that didn't work in my favor because that whole army of one slogan. I'm not
Yeah.
Superman, so that wasn't
Yeah.
gonna work for one person going after the biggest machine in the world. Um, but I got ghosted. Well, they tried to kill me a few times. I was interrogated by the CIA a couple times. And pretty much I have a dead man switch, so they couldn't obviously finish what they started, but they made me disappear through using civil courts, and
Hmm.
I was a ghost from 2007 uh, to 2012, and then I got
Hmm.
married and created a new identity, I guess, because I just didn't exist anywhere except for the town, and that's what I realized. They got me where they needed me, right? It was the town that I grew up in. So it's been a journey, and when the my program, not my programmer, he's a deprogrammer,
Yeah.
and each generation has programmers on the outside of our country because
Yeah.
the 1960s through the 70s, they were creating MK Ultra, mind control stuff, people.
Right.
But when they started to wake up, they had the ability to go after their handlers because their handlers were in America. So they
Yeah.
moved the handlers outside of America. Mine's in Norway. I don't
Right.
know who it is. I just know that's where they're at. Like their younger generation today, they're mind controlled by China, and that's why you have a
Damn.
lot of the communist values, like why they want communism, because they don't have the sense to not want it. You know what I mean? Because of the database and stuff that's going on with their programming.
Right.
But he called and started to deprogram me in different ways, and I had a brain aneurysm because it was too much information at once, and I survived it because I had knowledge before on healing. My grandma was a registered nurse,
Yeah.
so I was able to not have the side effects of what a brain aneurysm would have done, but I felt it. It was painful. It was not
Yeah.
fun at all. And I've had two brain aneurysms since my awakening, so you got to be careful with waking up because it can be too much. Don't go in slow,
Right.
because everybody wants to know the truth right away, but
Right.
remember our brains are soft tissue. So 2019 was when I was being deprogrammed, and then an operative came after me, and almost that fight went public. Because it's not the first time. They've sent military operators after me before, but it never went public. That
Crazy.
one did. Yeah. So everybody wakes up a little bit, and that's the best
Hmm.
way. Um, but it's been pieces here and there, like the big, I would say galactic puzzle piece, right? We all have pieces. We're all
Right.
connected to each other in a way, like an electrical, surge, whether it's negative or positive. We're still being affected by our own angelic energies.
Right. So, as you were talking, I'm not I'm not trying to distract myself, but I'm trying to stay on cue here because there was a lot of things that you said. I was like, oh wait, I got more questions. And
Right.
I told you I would have questions for you. I had a
That's fine.
couple already. The first, obviously, the first one we sort of hit on. I was talking about the awakening process, but I was talking to a friend actually, and what I told her was that it felt as if you look at milestones in your life, there were times that it almost felt like it was facilitated by the creator. Like there is, we do believe in a God or uh, I used to call him Yahweh or Yahweh. It felt like there's a story being played out in all of us, right? And almost our past lives, our timelines, our proclivities, the things that we desire, even our personalities are almost being used to help us awaken. So my other question to you is like, did you, after kind of thinking back to your awakening process, have you noticed that they're like breadcrumbs, like little things that sort of like almost as if your higher self was calling you back into yourself? Does it make sense?
Yeah, all the time.
All the time.
And it's whether we can hear it. It's almost like that ringing sound, but then now they're telling people ringing is the parasites in your ears, and
Hmm.
it's not always that way. When you have higher dimensional beings, including your higher self, your avatar, your oversoul, the heavens, they can't communicate with you like directly because again, we're in the 3D and they're not. So they're trying to help us escape the 3D.
Right.
And well, and they show it a lot in movies, like when you hear a sound, when something falls or a light
Yeah.
flickers, you're like,
Mhm.
you got to pay attention, right? It's like, wait,
Right.
is that a sign? Was that something?
Catches your eyes.
Yeah, and you're like, you got to think about it. But it's whether we're ready to receive it from ourselves or not. That, that
Right.
intuition in the back of your hair stands up on your spine. That's your kundalini. And I know a lot of people have the wrong impression of Kundalini. I did in the beginning too. But your
Mhm.
Kundalini is your angelic connection.
Right,
So, and it lets you know whether you're going into a bad spot, a good spot. You know what I mean? It's like your good and bad meter. Like
right.
the
Spidey
Ghostbusters
sense.
back in the day. They're like, oh, the signal's getting stronger over here, right?
Right, 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 right. I
So
call it
yeah,
my Spidey sense. I kind of
yeah,
figure
spidey senses. There you go. That
I
too.
get
There's
it.
a lot. It's gonna be different for everybody. It just depends on who we are, what we're capable of, and how we reach ourselves. I guess would
Okay,
be a pretty accurate way of putting that.
I hear that. Um, I wanted to ask another question, but it's totally off topic. But I'll ask you another time. But what I was going to ask you then is, um, how do we then continue on this path? Like, if you're angelic, well, first off, I think you said in one of your things, we have multiple entities here on the earth, right?
You mean like clones or just people?
Whatever
Yeah.
hybrids. We got
Hmm.
people. We got non-people. We got
Yeah.
what you would call aliens, or people from the Earth, Middle Earth. I mean, it's too much. But what I want to say is there is an angelic race, right? There are people,
Yeah, the
uh,
Angelicanoids.
right?
Yeah.
And so us, being whatever we call ourselves, I've just now last couple of years started hearing that first off I'd be able to talk to angels, and then somebody said, "Actually, no, you are an angel. You're a warrior angel." I said, "Okay, that's a lot to take in." And I feel a little bit more crazy. Thank you very much. But then,
It is a crazy journey. Fun
but
one.
another, yeah. But one of my friends actually, she sent me a TikTok video. It was all about Earth angels, right?
Hmm.
And so that sort of like kind of put me in the context. Okay, it's possible, right? So Earth angels, warrior, whatever we are, Ophanim, Seraphim, there's cherubim, and then we're here on Earth as some sort of angel consciousness. As we're awakening, what's the gentler way to keep bringing ourselves out? Are we? You sent me the 72 manifestation book, or I read it, and you sent me a title. And I started reading it, and I started understanding the North Star, the zero key, right?
Zero key. Most important key.
Right. Was that how you started getting in touch with your higher self, or were there other ways that you could even share with us? Like, okay, how can we facilitate our awakening process in a gentle manner to be hearing from higher self, talking to our angels, or whatever it is that you kind of would say is a gentle approach?
So I would say the gentlest approach is the 72 key, the book for 72 keys of manifestation. There are other, and I did find that in the secret knowledge, because again, being in the families, I have access to the secret and the forbidden knowledge. I don't go into the forbidden knowledge because even that stuff is, tainted, rewritten, refounded.
Right,
So
right,
it's like you just have to figure out what resonates with you and not
right.
try to push what doesn't. Like the first part of the journey is staying extremely open-minded, because if you're not, you're going to hit a brick wall every single time. The more
Right.
that you say that's not it, that's not it, that's not it, you're stopping yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we're co-creators. So therefore we create the reality we want to be in. So if we're stuck on one path, that's the only path you're ever going to see. It's like the maze. All these movies with the great mazes.
Right.
And sometimes they show you when you hit a wall, sometimes you just got to walk up, touch that wall, and see if it's some kind of door that you can walk through. Sometimes it's
Right.
not just a wall, it's just an illusion. And we know that the world is full of illusions right now.
That's true.
So, being extremely open minded, listening again to ourselves.
Mm,
Um, Everything's information. Nobody's wrong, nobody's right. It
mm,
depends on who you are, what your journey is, and what your part is. And
right.
everybody has apart. We all have to meet somebody that's going to teach us something, either a lesson, something that's going to help us move forward. If we weren't supposed to go in a certain direction, we're going to figure it out. It might be painful. We might fall on our ass, or excuse me, we might fall.
You're fine. Say what you gotta say, girl.
Okay.
Preach it.
or or we get a clear path. But everybody's important no matter what, and then we have to use both good and bad to accomplish this.
Right.
The
What we
journey
think
that we
is
each
good or bad.
individually have. Mhm.
So that brings me to my next point is in my own walk, I started understanding that, okay, there's this thing called the Enochian magic, where um, Solomon, right? I started to understand that, okay, there information that was stolen from quote unquote good guys, right? But then, like, for instance, the line of Cain, like they're the ones I guess we all think were misusing the information to pass on to their heirs so that they can be a part of this global conspiracy, whatever you want to call it. Needless to say, this idea popped in my head was, well, if they stolen it from the good people, then what's to say we can't just steal it back and use it, for whatever is profitable, whatever could be a blessing. So I started having this understanding that even if it was as weird as reading like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, right? Um, Most mainline Christians, they would call me crazy for touching that. That's witchcraft, da 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 da. You can open a door. And I'd done enough deliverance ministry in my own day. I've cast demons out of people. You know what I'm saying? I've cast demons out of spaces. You know what I'm saying? And I knew the difference between allowing evil to overtake you and kind of figuring out, okay, what is the enemy camp doing? You know what I'm saying? So I totally agree. There's really what we think is good or bad. It depends on who you're asking. You know what I'm saying? And what you're using
Right.
it for. And
Exactly. What you're
there
using
is
it
black
for.
magic. You know what I'm saying? There is the control of other people. You know what I'm saying? But then this idea of white magic always in the church was weird. And, it's like, don't use magic at all. And I'm like, well, it depends on what you think magic is. You know what I'm saying? Like what is magic? What are we doing? Go ahead. You have
Yeah.
to say.
I was gonna say you can't talk about Jesus and not talk about magic.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
magic is a child's word. So when we're being
Uh-huh.
raised up in these families, like meditating is a child's word. It's how you train a child's mind to understand what etherical energy is, or um, tesseract energy. Like the words that they teach us down here are children's words.
Right.
So that's why everybody doesn't have a higher education than second grade, because they're still letting you guys know the child teaching, not the adult
Right.
teaching.
I'm understanding what you're saying though, and there's
Yeah.
another part to it that I sort of, when we look at the Bible, I think it's Paul. He says something to the effect of, basically you're drinking spiritual milk. But he says later on, he says, as you grow in the faith, you're supposed to be able to eat meat. You know what I'm saying? Meaning, like, when I talk to people about the modern day Western church, all we talk about in our churches is treating other people nicely, kindly, dealing with your emotions, maybe dealing with your feelings, dealing with life's quote unquote first world problems. You know what I'm saying? Don't get mad at your
Right.
spouse. Don't get mad at your kids. Don't beat your kids. Don't beat your wife. Wife, respect the husband. Don't nag him when he's watching football and drinking beer. Like, we're talking about these like very superficial things. And then when it comes to actually Jesus saying, hey, heal the sick and proclaim the gospel, you're like, what is the gospel? What is the kingdom? Where is the temple? Who is the kingdom? And what
Right.
does it mean to actually heal the sick? You know what I'm saying? Laying on of hands. While other cultures are like, yeah, Reiki energy, you know, telekinesis, teleportation, you know, and they're like, well, these are witchcraft. No, Philip teleported. He talked to the Ethiopian eunuch and then automatically was taken to Samaria, right?
Hmm.
In the Bible. Jesus hid himself. He healed people. He felt power leave him when the lady that had the blood issue, I think it was Luke 8:44, touched the hem of his garment and he was healed. He didn't have to say a word. I mean, so there's so many things that were like, oh, well, you have to attain this mastery first. I think, me personally, I think our churches have been infiltrated by secret societies, whatever you want to call them, right?
Well, everything has been. So things have to change in order to grow.
Yeah,
And again, a lot of people are going to hate having to hear this, but and it won't resonate with a lot of people, and that's fine because it's not their time for it to resonate.
right.
There, you can't wake a whole world up at once. That's a huge panic, right? Because
Yeah,
then it's
no,
going to
you're
be
right.
really ugly.
Aliens are coming. Oh no.
Right. So it's got to be done in drones of, and people in different areas because the thing that the takeaway you got to take from the Bible is like who was the leader? Okay, Jesus was the leader, and then you had all the apostles, and then and then there was the book of Mary, and then that whole
Hmm.
story got distorted. What it is when you get to that position of becoming a master, what
Hmm.
happens? People see you. How do you know that that person even existed if you didn't have the witnesses, right?
Right.
So, and again, I always revert back to military because to me it makes more sense because
Hmm.
I grew up surviving.
I hear you.
And a lot of people have from the abuse and the neglect and everything else. But that's part of it. Like if you're a warrior energy, you're gonna come down here to fight the biggest battles. But
Right.
people see it. They can't resonate with somebody who just talks and has no experience. You know what I mean? They will for a minute, but then they realize it's like, well, wait a minute, where's your experience? And they don't have
Mm-hmm.
any. There's no authenticity there. So Jesus walked, but people walked with him. So when
Hmm.
you finally figure out your path, you're going to walk and you're not going to let, I would say, vendors on the side of those roads distract you. Like you can go
Hmm.
off and be like, oh, I need to get some supplies here in the spiritual sense of I
Right.
need to learn something. And then you get back on that road. You're
Hmm.
not going to stick around like other people. They get stuck. So when you get to the higher consciousness, you figure out what type of map and legal Bible
Hmm.
or legal law book the Bible was. It was a path to help people ascend out. But
Hmm.
I call it the Merlin journey because if
Hmm.
anybody saw that movie, Merlin or the TV
Hmm.
series, he
Oh, I
had a
love that TV
teacher.
series. Yeah, he
Yeah,
did. A
he
mentor.
had a teacher, and his teacher was like, "Oh, don't go running off trying to save the world. You're not ready yet. You're not ready." And here we go. He got off
Yeah.
the path, and he had to learn some stuff. And then he came back either broken, heartbroken. He learned something, or he got something. You know what I mean? And that's what we're
Hmm.
doing. Everybody's doing that same thing, but in a different way, because we all have a different path.
Yeah, you touched on some interesting things. It just randomly, I think maybe a month ago, I started thinking about this idea of a hero's quest.
Hmm.
And for some reason, I guess it was in a masculine format thinking about it because at the end of it, at the beginning, you get this call, something comes almost through the matrix, supernaturally almost. You get a call and then you go through these tests, tribulations, you have a temptation, like you said, to go off the path. But then at the very end, it has on this graphic the I guess the goddess or the gift of the goddess, right? And I don't know if because we're on a feminine planet and that's what a masculine energy would want, right? Because I find myself on this journey where all of my teachers, my main teachers, have actually been women. So
Right.
from the get go, my first relationship is my ex wife, and we have three kids, and we run a business together, and I'm learning through that relationship, and then I have another friend learning through that relationship. I have another friend who's a female learning through that, another friend who's a female, and now I'm learning from you, right? and
Right.
and they're all beautiful women in their own right. They're all different personalities. They're all come from different backgrounds. One's a Reiki teacher, master, who works with the Monroe Institute, who can bend spoons, another, you know what I'm saying? It's like the most random people you would ever think to be, but I didn't search out any of them as becoming my master teacher. It was more like they found me, right? And so I'm not ever saying to myself, okay, I'm off the beaten path. I feel like I'm actually having to go to these people because it's like they're right there in front of my face and I can't look left or right. You know,
Right.
I had to call you. I've called you. We've talked many other times. I've spilled all the beans about my personal life to you, you know, you were like, yeah, okay, that sounds normal. Like it does. You know, oh
Well,
God.
the conversations I have sometimes, it's
Right.
humbling to get a normal conversation sometimes.
Well,
But it's
I
part of
thank you.
somebody's path.
Right. So the one thing I wanted to maybe hit on then is the deprogram in your own life. Was that something that you wanted, or they wanted for you so that you could? Was it a defector wanting to help you deprogram, or this was just a part of the plan to help you deprogram to prepare you for whatever plan was like?
Everything has a time.
Right.
And time is in here. We have time here, but it's different types of time.
Hmm.
And as you go, you'll realize you control that time, but you don't control that time.
Right.
So there's a duality of existence here, good, bad, here, there, push and pull, yin and yang, right? You have
Hmm.
to have a certain thing. So there's 10 people like me.
Right.
And what I mean by is we were brought here to try to stop the war of
Hmm.
right now because a lot of people are going to die if we don't. But
Right.
I wasn't the first choice. And that's fine. I don't have to be the first choice. I'm not trying to run out there like, some
Hey,
crazy
there's something to be
guru.
said with watching other people kind of get it done and said, okay, well, I'm
Right.
not
We all
stepping on
do
that
that with
tile.
tests. They give the ball. Who wants to volunteer? Nobody's raising their hand, right?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
somebody wants to see somebody else do it so they know, oh, okay, that's how we do it. Well,
Yeah.
not like that wasn't my thing. If somebody asked me to do it, I probably would do it, but then I already knew what was going to happen with, being a part of it in a negative way, but I didn't know how it was going to happen being a part of it in a positive way. So I'm like totally trailblazing this blind.
Hmm.
And it was different, and the other three, heirs before me had unfortunately died, but they said I was probably the one that would make it because I had military experience. I had all this background to be able to fight and protect myself and my family.
Hmm.
And I don't know what happened with the other. There's six other heirs, but I do know that somebody big in this world has control of those six heirs, but
Yeah.
nobody knew I existed. So it's like, again, as the journey went on, I realized with the Bible, I'm like, okay, there's more than one Jesus. So how many children, sons did Creator have?
Hmm.
Right? So to first of all, like I said, stay open-minded, because when you limit the Creator's ability to try to save this planet to one person, that's
Right.
ridiculous because that one person could die. I mean,
Right.
three died before me.
Hmm.
So I don't even know if I'm going to succeed, but if I get close enough, it's already in the etherical energy that the next person would
Hmm.
be able to pick up what I've already put through, just like I picked up what those other girls already did. You know what I mean? The energy jumps to whoever's going to be the savior. So it could be me, it could be another person, but that's the person that's going to do it. But there's at least 10 or 50 of us down here trying to
Hmm.
save a whole planet. So, but
I have faith in you. I have a feeling you're savvy enough. There's something special about you. I will say that. And I think that I think the way in which things are happening, um, I think you have a lot of people that are being set up to help protect you. I'll
well,
just say,
I do have a lot of protection, but things have slipped through the cracks. There's been a lot of close calls, like that last one was pretty rough. I was actually at the point I was fighting myself to want to
hmm.
stay. I was like, you know what? I'm done fighting. And I wanted to let go. I wanted that guy to kill me at that point. I'm like, okay. But then I remembered my children and I was like, I can't leave yet. Because after
Shit.
he kills me, he's going to go after my kids. And then I tapped into his mindset,
Hmm.
and he was like strangling me with my own arm, bashing my face in. I lost 3 molars in
Shit.
that fight. That's how bad that was.
Yeah, so
So
people think that these are just spiritual battles, but these are actually real
no,
deal.
the chosen ones go through the physical, yeah.
Yeah,
Spiritual, physical, mental.
everything. Yeah, I know
But
people don't
that's what makes
understand.
us the chosen, right? Because, and I always tell people, they're like, "Oh, I wish I could do what you do." I was like, "No, you don't,"
No, you
because you
know.
probably wouldn't survive it. A lot of children didn't survive it. I am
Right.
considered a lucky one because the program I was put in, millions of kids like me have died.
Damn.
So,
That's a sobering thought.
right. Never want a destiny swap with somebody like me. I wouldn't want a destiny swap with somebody like me.
Nah, and I'm starting to believe a lot of people have these fairy tale sort of ideas of what they think like life is supposed to be or what it was supposed to turn out to be. Um, it's a first world fantasy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Um, because if you're a Christian, for instance, you call yourself a Christian rather, your heroes, not just Jesus, but your heroes, 12 disciples, one of them hung himself, right? But the other ones, they went on to kind of share the gospel, share their life, create their books of life, create the gospel, whatever. They were chopped at the head. They were, beheaded. They were hung on a cross upside down. Like they were like, some of them were burned. I mean, John, I don't know how true
Right.
these stories are. I mean, you know more than I do how much of the Bible has been twisted or contorted. But from what I mean, they're putting that out there to say, hey, just so you know, this is what we do with people who try to rebel against the system, you know?
Right.
And that's really what the Roman crucifixion was. They would put it on the side of the road and then say, for anybody that is concerned with overthrowing Rome, this is what happens. You know what I'm saying? So the Holy Roman Empire, they put out the Bible. They're like, oh, make sure we put these parts in here. Let's make this a focal point. These motherfuckers all die. Like, just letting you know.
Well, yeah, and
Not
there's
all of them,
another
but
there's
yeah,
another
go
way
ahead.
to look at that. I mean, yeah, with the crucifixions along the road, think about it. If how would you take that story and put it into today's like
Hmm.
scene, if you will? Because again, it repeats itself just in a different way. So imagine that those people were trying to take on Rome, right? What if
Hmm.
that incident of what they were doing, how did they do that? Were they in
Hmm.
these patriot groups back in the day? And they were going after the courts, they were going after the government officials, they were being negative. Because we've been in all those groups, and those groups have infiltrators, right? I mean, their
Right.
leaders alone have been bought out.
Judas.
So they're like, yeah, Judas is everywhere.
Martin Luther
And it's
King
not
Jr.
just, yeah,
was a
and it's not
CIA
just
agent, right?
Judas. Peter, Paul, all of those guys betrayed Jesus, but you don't see
Yep.
it until you get into the higher knowledge. That's why all these celebrities, they're all Satanists. They say, once you hear what the Bible has to say, it's going to make you mad. And it really does. Because you're
Hmm.
like, all those dudes betrayed Jesus,
Just about.
but they got bought out and they lived. Because what is the Vatican today? And guess where all those guys went? They were hailed to the Vatican.
Mm. So that's why they
Even
gave him the
Michael.
sainthood.
Yeah. Not Michael, Matthew. Because he always made sense in a lot of things. But then I realized Michael or Matthew, not Michael, was the worst.
Matthew.
Matthew in the
Hmm.
Bible, he
Yeah,
was one, but all of them delegated. See my earpiece going off?
I hear it.
Is
Is
it ringing?
Nah, I can hear you still. It did go out for a second, but I
Yeah.
can hear you now. Is it
Okay.
does that when you're trying to? You're good.
I had a
I
spam
can hear you.
call. So all those people that were hung on the cross are the people who are being arrested today for doing these, 1099s, doing all the other stuff. They're like, "Oh, that's yours." But you have to see what happened like
Hmm.
from that time to this time, right? There was a lot of brutality back then. There's a lot of brutality today. But
Right.
the death sentence isn't on the list as of right now, but it sounds like it might be coming back. So people need to be careful when they're using those Patriot documents. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I did the same thing. I'd use the Patriot documents, but I didn't go as high as, oh, I'm going to get my treasury, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they don't want you to have that. So then you got to watch the movies. The movies are telling. So Aladdin, he
Mm-hmm.
knew he was worth more, right? He knew there was this spark in him and he was something special. But what
Right.
was he always going for? The treasure,
Right.
right? He was always trying to go for the treasure. Everybody's trying to chase the money. The
Right.
whole Luciferian kingdom that we're in is chasing the money. The reason you're chasing it is because you're never going to catch up. It's not
Mm-hmm.
designed for you to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
It's never designed for you to get it unless you give the oath to the
Mm.
god of this world,
The
right? Which is
soul.
Baal. Right. So, and then if you do that, you sacrifice, you do some other stuff, and then you can become rich and famous, but you got to live with it, right? You got to
Right.
sell your soul. And
Yeah.
I think the first problem that we all have is we don't realize you're a soul having a human experience, not a human having a soul experience.
Right.
This is just a ship, we just drive it differently.
Mm-hmm.
So the body doesn't have permission to sell the soul.
Right.
So that's where
So
the celestial crime comes in. It's a
got you.
crime against the creator because he created your soul, or she, both.
Right. So
That's like somebody taking your child.
right. So you're taking something that you don't really own,
Correct.
right? It's almost on loan, your energy, your life, even the plan, right? There's a plan for all of us,
Correct.
right?
And we all
And
fit
yeah,
together. Like
right,
the movie Lord of the Rings.
right.
You had the hobbits, the dwarves, the elves, the humans all working together to
Right.
accomplish one thing. Not one person can do it. It
Mm-hmm.
has to be a collective. It's always
Right.
been the collective, unity, and all of that. Jesus couldn't do it by himself. He had the apostles. Regardless whether they betrayed him in the end, he still had to have other people. Because that's what we have to do down here. We're not solo catalysts.
Mm-hmm.
We are a tribe. We need each other. And the minute we stop saying, "Oh, I don't need anybody because I can do it all myself," there's a day that comes that you need somebody.
You better believe it. We all need each other.
Right.
And you brought up the idea of the 1099s, the Patriot. I don't even know about these Patriot papers. I've been on TikTok every now and then. I've been seeing stuff. They're
Right.
like, yeah, you're an IRS number, and you gotta go to the local office and put this on here and do this and do that. I'm like, what the heck are these? I mean, I know it's real because I'm like, okay, I'm just looking at the facts, but I'm like, does anybody have like a real way to actually make any of this work, or just you
Right.
know?
It's the ones that took an oath. They approach you in a business manner.
Mm-hmm.
I was approached first by the Masons, and I already know who these people are. I just didn't know it was the head of one of the groups I was in.
Holy
I
cow!
was like, for real. But as a veteran, he told me his truth, right?
Yeah.
Because we had a similar fight story.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do to control you, because again, a lot of people think, oh, if I get in, I take this oath, I'm going to take that power and I'm going to stop that. I was like, no, no, no. Doesn't work that way. You
Mm-hmm.
can't use their power against them. You have to use a power greater, if not equal to what you're
Mm-hmm.
fighting.
Yeah.
So the only way to do that again is through Jesus, the creator, and
Yeah.
the Queen of Heaven, because that's the true Trinity, and the true Trinity is also in you.
Right.
So, and then we mirror, and that 0 point energy, the two triangles, one's facing up, one's facing down, and they're laying,
Mm-hmm.
from each other.
Like a tetrahedron or Merkaba.
No, one's on top, one's
Okay.
down. They're not merged. But
Okay.
that line in between the
Yeah.
two, that's the 0 point. Everything
Mm.
starts from 0 point. So the
Okay.
zero key is the most important. When you can get the 0 point, you can go either way.
Mm-hmm.
When we're younger, we're always at the crossroads. Well, guess who else is at the crossroads? The devil. He's waiting for you to
Mm-hmm.
sign that contract, right?
Right.
So when you understand the different roads, so the crossroad, you actually have 4 options, not 3. You can
Mm-hmm.
go forward, you can go left, you could go right, but you can always
Mm-hmm.
turn around and go back.
Right.
When you get to the fork in the road, this is where you're dealing with Lucifer and all his nonsense. You
Mm-hmm.
have the right or the left. There's no in between, but you can still turn around and go back.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get on what they call the straight and narrow,
Mm-hmm.
there's 2 ways. You can go forward or you can go back. But that forward road is going to be the scariest one because you're running now out of options. So you can't not fight whatever's in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just whether you have the will to do it.
Right. I feel like I'm there right now. There's been a lot of things that have been almost calling my attention to honor the pressure of the matrix.
Right.
And it's hard to describe it. I can't get too much into my personal life on here, but there are options that I have to sort of go back, you know what I'm saying? And to say, you know what, it's all for naught. But it feels like the creators put these things out in front of me to say, um, if you go back, then it makes everything else that you've believed in sort of non-important, non-consequential. Um, that you've almost died for in a sense, or you've almost put yourself through to stand on it. Because I believe I've been put in a place to actually exit the matrix in certain ways. It's like some of my bridges have been burned for me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So most people, I have a feeling there's going to be people watching this that feel as if, okay, they're living like the life of Job, for instance, or they're an Esther. They got to like make a difficult decision. You know what I'm saying? And continue to move on. What do people do? I know you talked about prayer, the 0 point key, and also this path of no return, just about how do people continue to exit the matrix in a way that like is efficient? You know, you I mean, I know you've talked about the book of life. Is that something you want to talk about here or
Yeah, we can talk about it. There's
yeah,
a
I mean,
few
is that
versions of it, yeah.
yeah, keep going.
So they start off as master exits. Um, and again, it just depends on if it's your time to ascend. It's not everybody's a time to ascend out. Some
Mhm.
people have to go, and it's unfortunate. And I couldn't understand that for a long time. But again, once you realize each soul has a different path it
Mhm.
has to take, and death is part of it. So those people aren't going to be able to come because they have the Merlin journey to go through. And it's going to be a couple lives. We've done this
Wow.
several times in this journey, and everybody's looking for a way out of the war. How do I survive the war?
Yeah.
War isn't always in another country. Sometimes it's in your front yard, but when it starts to get
Mhm.
close to home, that's why I was like, don't judge how things happen because when something's not changing or moving forward or developing, how do you get something to move? We got to give
Mhm.
it a little kick. Well, sometimes it doesn't move very far, so you got to really mess up its world. Like, you got to yell at it, you got to scream at it,
Yeah.
you got to, and that's what I feel like creators doing, by
Mhm.
creating war. Because if we're comfortable, we're not going to change, right? We're going to stay how we
You're
are.
right.
This is how you do it. This is the way we're going to go. So if you're really being attacked right now, it's your turn to ascend. And you're not
Right.
wanting to, you're resisting. So if you're at that point where you feel like somebody's after you, they're going to kill you or you're going to die, that's just that nudge, that spiritual nudge, like you need to move. You need to make this change. Um, and the book of life is written in the Bible.
Mhm.
The master exit is also written in the Bible, just in a different way. And it comes in the form of teachings, it comes in the form of the prophets, it comes in the form of other ways because you
Mhm.
don't get to meet the masters until you're ready,
Right.
right? We can read about the masters, that was their journey. So I was given one of the master exits by somebody in the Masons. It was the Mason
Mhm.
exit, but
Mhm.
it wasn't a complete exit. It elevated you from the slave to the monarchy slave, the one that
Okay.
works for all the government, the lords and the kings. So, and then 2 weeks later, I got the template from the Masons. No, no,
Mhm.
the Templars. and that was the treasury one. And I realized they were very similar, just a little bit different.
Hmm.
And then I realized later it was I turned it into the book of life. And I had seen it before when I read the Bible a long time ago. They don't have it in the book anymore unless you're a Mormon or um what's the other one? Jehovah. They have it in there. But see, people don't want to be bothered by those people because they're missionaries and they come to your door and all they want to do is run you down this path of annoyance sometimes. But again, it's like I invite them in. I'm like, yes, we can talk about your religion, but you got to listen to me too.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I love to give it to them. I say, look, you want some cookies? I said,
Right, because
all that. Yeah,
yeah,
they're
because they
good kids.
still have something to tell you. There's something that you have to hear. Whether you and again, static is everywhere, and it's almost like I don't want to talk about that, but then you hear this blip, Book of Life. Oh wait, what? Wait, can we talk
Hmm.
about that? And there it is. It's in their books.
Hmm.
But
Good life.
and that's what Jesus did. Nobody really realizes, just both of them. They all went on the same journey after they were 8 years old. When you're 8 years old back in that day, you were a young man.
Hmm.
So what did they do? They had to go to the expert teachers. Um,
They went to Buddha. One of them went to Buddha, if I'm not mistaken.
well, they went to a lot of them. They went to the Buddha, they went to the
Egypt.
Chinese, Egypt, they went all over Greece, Russia,
Okay.
Eden. They went to everywhere because they had to learn. So there's that
Mm.
big gap between the age of 8 and 30
Okay.
that they were in college pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So
Master's
learning the
level course.
trades. But this was the ascension trades. So that's what the book of life does. And it is the book of Job. When you start the journey with the book of life, you are literally going to go through what Job went. You're going to lose people. The book protects you. It shows you who's infiltrating you, who's not. Um,
Hmm. Your
and
handlers.
your handlers, right? You lose
It's a
people, but
weird
you're supposed
concept.
to. That you've made it, so they got to start dropping off, and then
Hmm.
you're gonna meet new people who are on a similar path. And then it's not like you're meeting your tribe; you're meeting your ascension. Because again, even in the next where you're going, you need people. You need each other. Because right now, God's restoring the kingdoms of heaven on earth. So there's about
Right.
300, close to 300 people who need to be in that section.
Okay.
And then will come the monarch and then the people.
So kingdoms are being restored. Kings are being
Yes.
put back. Queens are being put back into.
Queens are being put back, mostly. Not all of them, but yes.
And so, is it my understanding? Because I've had this weird thought that a lot of quote unquote kings or princes, and it's weird. My name actually means luminous shining prince, right? So there's been a lot of things that have been embedded in me, um, that have sort of just felt like it's called me into my journey. So I've never thought of
Right.
myself as being, super important, but I've thought of myself as having an important call. Like there's something I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to lead people out of Egypt, essentially. I'm supposed to. I even told God one time when I was younger, I said, if I have to, I can't see a screen. I'm not sure if that's on purpose or not. Um, I said, if I have to, I will, I might have to die. You know what I'm saying? Like Martin Luther King Jr. Now, I don't know if he really died or, I mean, maybe he got shot because he didn't want to do what the CIA wanted him to do. But that's a different story. But what I've sort of thought is, there's a lot of things that have been lined up. And I see women now as queens, needing to be put back into, a rightful position, meaning that I've heard so many things about feminine energy. I've heard so many things about the earth being feminine in nature, our earth being feminine in nature. And I've heard and felt in the spirit realm almost that like women are being put back in the rightful place. And like it's actually there's gonna be men that are gonna be, like I told you in another conversation, it feels like there's a Knights of the Round Table sort of deal. You know what I'm saying? And there's gonna
Right.
be men that are gonna be surrounding women to protect them with their life almost, and making sure that they make it to where they're supposed to go. You know what I'm saying? I know it sounds weird,
Right.
but
Not really. Because again, when you understand the energies of the planets, like again, I think I explained it to you, Earth is feminine, so therefore the protectors would be feminine, but there are males. It's not so imbalanced. Like when
mhm.
Jesus had the 12 apostles, but Mary had 149.
Mary
So
had
again,
149. Wow,
yeah. So
that's
there you
cool.
go, right? That's why there was a mass murder and then they called them witches. They weren't witches. They were apostolettes and they
They're
burned them
burning
at
them
the
at the
stake.
stake.
Yes.
It's crazy.
So, and that's why so many of them died is
Mm,
women wake up earlier. But and I hate to say it online
that's how it
public,
goes.
when I was married, my we lived in a time where it was scary like everybody else, right? I was married in 2012 to 15. It wasn't a long marriage, but I knew my husband for a long time. We were kids.
Hmm.
Um and we had to have the escape route, right? What if happens?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, who's going to run off with the kids and who's going to fight?
Hmm.
He was like, "I'll take the kids, you fight." Right?
God, well, because he knew you were about that.
Right. And I couldn't run with the kids because I had giants. My kids were like super heavy. So for me, it
Hmm.
was easier to fight. And he's like this tall, 6'4". He can carry some weight. So then it clicked
Hmm.
to me. I was like, that's what it is. Men are supposed to protect the children, and women
Like
were the
penguins,
fighters. Huh?
like penguins.
Right. But it's also the mother bear, mama
Right,
cougar, whatever.
right,
They're going to protect and fight. And the
right, right,
male was supposed to keep the cubs because that's the next generation, right? You guys
right.
are protectors, we're fighters, but the men, again, with all the invader races from other planets, there are masculine planets. So therefore, a lot of the planets that came here were masculine. So they wanted
Hmm.
to change the dynamic of the planet, and by putting the masculine in charge, and
Mm.
it just if it's not a frequency that can work, it's not going to
Hmm.
work. So
Right.
it's we're fighting our own duality.
Hmm.
So on a feminine planet, the female are the leaders, but there are male leaders too that are in sync with the masculine and the feminine that are leaders. Like Robin Hood, he was a king. That's why they resisted the whole thing. He wasn't a thief,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. He was part of the Grail angelic bloodline, and then there was Arthur, King Arthur. He was real. He was locked
Hmm.
in a tower. Queen Guinevere was in on his demise,
Wow.
and they locked him in the tower when she became pregnant with his son, and
Hmm.
Merlin betrayed Creator at that point because of his loss of the love of his life and his child or something or children. So again, he punished the world. He could have saved the world way back then, and he didn't. He's actually part of the destruction still today.
Jeez Louise. Come on, Merlin. Damn.
Right.
Well, then, this is my last question because I had you on here for a long time. I'm sorry. Thank you so
It's
much. It's
okay.
been amazing. The last question is now everything going on right now. I said everything.
Everything. That's a
Everything.
that's a broad
That's
question,
that's
right?
a broad question. Everything's a lot of what is going on right now with the Trump. And so everything with Trump going on right now, we had the JFK files, we had the Epstein, all this and that. They're incomplete anyways, you know.
Right.
Um, what can we start to expect as like as a part of our awakening process? Like how can we properly awaken in this time as people continue to sort of maybe it's just an act of prayer and getting in touch with your higher self, or are there things to pay attention to that you understand are going to be happening on this timeline within March? You know, because it felt like March energetically was interesting. I don't
Well,
know.
March is retrograde, Mercury in retro. So
Okay.
it's a revealing energy. It's like a there's a friend of mine, she described it as the wood energy. So it's a hard
Hmm.
energy. It's like the birthing energy.
Okay.
So again, women can relate to it because we're the ones that give birth,
Right.
but it's revealing. And it's scary because, I mean, it can appear scary because things have to come to light, things have to come to truth. Nobody wants to hear the truth, but, you can't not push that baby out, right? You can't leave it in
Yeah.
there. It's got to come
Yeah.
out.
It's got to go.
But you
Yeah.
never know what's going to happen, right? The baby could die, there could be complications. There's so many things. So there's so much going through somebody's mind during that whole process. It could be a beautiful thing, it turn disastrous, right?
Hmm.
That's what the Mercury in retro energy is.
Okay.
Is it's a cleansing, it's
Purge is a
it's a
word I've heard.
purge, yes. But it
Okay.
could be it could be a good thing because you're going to reveal your enemies. It just depends on what you need to get rid of,
Hmm.
right? Or what you need to, come into.
Yeah.
So the book of life is exactly that. It's if you're starting it in a Mercury in retro, there's going to be a lot of emotions. A
Yep.
lot of revealings, a lot of stuff happening because it needs to happen. That you can't stop it. It's just you can walk away from it, but you're going to fight everything else around you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, the key takeaway is it's your fight,
Yes.
your personal fight with your physical, your mental, your spiritual, your everything.
Okay.
But again, that's why I'm like, stay open minded. You can't not stay open minded while doing anything, especially right now, because there's so much confusion, there's so much lies, there's so much misdirection. But that's the point. When you're on that last path of the straight and narrow, you
Hmm.
already know what's behind you. Is that
Right.
what you want to go back to? Do you want to go backwards?
No.
Nobody knows what's in front of them. You just know there's something you got to get to, and you got to be realistic that it's not going to be easy,
Hmm.
right? But you're going to have to test everybody. Like I said, there's going to be vendors on this side of the road, and you're eventually going to need to eat, or you're eventually going to need to resupply, or, you
Hmm.
got to pick up this knowledge, you got to do something. So, yeah, you're going to get off that road for a second, but as long as you stay back on that road after what you did and not
Hmm.
get so swayed that you get arrested because, again, you don't want to end up on that cross on the side of the road. You're on the straight and narrow.
Hmm.
That was the symbolism of the road to Rome.
Hmm.
These guys did it the wrong way, so we're going to make an example of them.
Hmm. Okay.
And that's what I learned. So when I started doing the master exit, which turned into the book of life,
Hmm.
the Roman soldiers weren't there no more.
Hmm.
They said hi. I wasn't It was kind of scary at first. It's like, well, why are these guys waving?
Hmm.
Why are
Right.
they being
So
nice?
your path, you're now you're making the statement that things got easier. You had protections around you. The Creator was making a way.
Right, because you're not
It
in a
was
fight no more.
okay,
They don't want to
which is a
die.
state
You
of
don't want
mind.
to die. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't got to go in there and fight with them. That's the problem. And I did it. I did. I went in and I fought the court. My friend and I, every time we go to court now, there's like 8 cops.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And they know who we are. You know what I mean? They're ready for us. Our name pops up and it's like, it's the biggest shit show ever.
Yeah.
But when you realize you don't have to fight, because again, they don't want to get hurt. You don't want to get hurt. You got to find a balance between good and evil.
Hmm.
They are doing their job. Their job is to wake you up. Their job is to help you and push you to wake up.
Hmm.
But if you're going to look at that like, a bad thing, then you're going to get harvested because they have no choice. You become crazy, belligerent, and out of your mind.
Right.
So if you're going to do business with something, you have to come in like you're doing business. When you go to the bank, you're not going to threaten the banker, right?
Right. No.
Yeah, that's not how you get a loan.
No. So then April, then if March is a purge, it's a birthing period. Once there's a void, you push the baby out, or it's a tough tension time. You don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
April then becomes new life. It becomes
The resurrection.
a brand new path. It's like
Yeah.
it's almost like you're in the wilderness and you don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if that's a good way
Right.
to put it. Wow. So then April is let's see, 7 is the number of completion. So then 8 is new beginnings, right?
Right.
Okay.
Infinite new beginnings. Well, look at it, the Easter egg hunt.
Right.
So March, you have all this and all this knowledge coming to you. You know, bad people, good people, who's not good for you, who's good for you. There's
Yeah.
all the eggs, right? And you just got to go find them. Now I got to get new eggs for my basket.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that. So then
So
8
yeah, the
is
new beginnings, the rise, the resurrection.
in
Again, the Bible becomes
Ishtar
things
is the
different.
queen of heaven, right?
No,
Okay. Never mind. Isis. Isis.
no.
They've been misappropriating these, right? Is that what it is?
The fallen angels took on. They
Have
wanted to be
taken.
gods, right?
Okay. That's where we're
And
at.
they have
Okay.
different names. I mean, there's a lot of gods. That's why in the Bible it says, well, and then
Psalm
even
82.
that guy, Baal is the one that rules the planet right now,
Right.
and his time's
Right.
up. But he's the God in the Bible. There's two gods in the Bible. When it says the creator of the creation, that's talking about creator and creation, the queen and king of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but when it talks about the God, that's Baal. So everybody's
Right.
worshiping Baal. Yay, Baal.
Right.
Sacrifice. Do
Yeah.
as I
They're
say, kill
passing
your
kids through the
son.
fire.
Right.
Yeah. And
Cheers.
oh my God, yeah, and drinking the blood.
Yep.
So we're not
Yeah, and
supposed to take communion.
I laugh at the Catholics because again, I've been hit with so many crosses. I'm surprised I don't have like some kind of like mark on my forehead.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you go in there, especially the Catholics, they're funny.
Mm-hmm.
You say, well, we drink the blood of Jesus and represent that little cookie thing or whatever it is.
With
This is a
the
representation of his
wafer,
flesh.
the wafer with his
Yeah, I'm
body.
like,
Yeah.
whoa, are you guys cannibals? And they're like, what? I was like, why would you eat Jesus's skin? That's gross.
They're like it's
Why
a
would you drink
representation.
his blood? I mean, that's adrenochrome. That's sloosh.
They
That's
do
a vampire
substantiation.
thing.
They
Yeah.
say they say it's substantiation. It actually turns into it.
Right.
Um,
And you know, war has that same concept. You're saving your
right.
country by killing these people. Wait, what? How am I saving
And
my country by killing other people in my country?
it's a backwards concept. So
Yep.
we're rewriting our own history and re-understanding what it even means to follow the creator. That was actually one thing I wanted to talk about, and you hit on that. It's just that we're figuring out that there's a couple of bulls in the church. You know what I'm saying? A couple of
Right.
because Baal, they used bull worship for Baal, right?
They use
For
a lot of things. A lake, rivers. I mean, believe it
right,
or not, being baptized is a Baal thing. That's what leaves you in the loop of reincarnation.
huh? Jesus,
Your baptism certificate goes to the Vatican.
I've been baptized. I don't know if I have
Yeah.
a baptism certificate or not.
Oh, the churches won't do it without it.
No, so somebody's got it.
Somebody's
Somebody's
got
got
it.
my back. Well, my prayer is that I'm outside the loop, and I feel like I am. I feel if
Well,
I'm talking here.
and see, I was 17 when I realized what was happening in the church because again, I was part of it. I learned the white magic growing up because you had to learn, but I just had it. So the white magic, and again, I was being taught by a witch. And
Hmm.
but that's how they groom you into it, right? There's a
Right,
process. They teach you
right.
the good stuff and then they kind of ease you into that bad stuff and you're like, "Wait a minute. I don't know about this."
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Right?
mm-hmm.
And
I hear
then
you.
my baptism came up on a Wednesday. My mom is working, the other two kids are in school, and all of a sudden, nobody's going to my baptism that I know. And I
Hmm.
was in a church in the day with all these people in like black dresses, black suits, older, then they're chanting some shit, and we're walking down this aisle, right? And I felt my grandma's
Wow.
grip getting real tight on my arm, and I'm like, what the hell? White robe and all. We're gonna get into
Yeah.
this baptism, and then I realized it was like crystalline spears coming through my body, and
Jeez.
just in a celestial sense. But these people are like chanting, murmuring something in their breath, right, as I'm walking
Hmm.
down the aisle, and my whole spiritual like radar, like run, Will
Going off.
Robinson kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? And I realized that wasn't a baptism. That was me getting ready to be promised and married to Lucifer.
Ooh.
So I
Yep.
kicked my grandma, and she's tall. She was a tall woman. She's 6'1", strong.
Yeah.
Took a couple of hits, and then I ran out. Was like, I love life, right? So the
That's
Satanists
crazy.
use the churches during the day while
Yeah.
everybody's at work being distracted.
I could hear that. I could see
Yep.
that.
So everybody's using the church. The thing
Yep.
is all the new churches now are not on holy ground. All those ones were destroyed.
Hmm. Wow.
So the demons can go into the churches. The fallen, the evil ones, they can go into the churches. They work the
Yeah.
church. They are the divine. Doesn't matter if they're fallen or not. They're only punished. They're not dead. The only one that's dead, or supposed to be dead, but they're immortal, was
This is,
Azazel. Hmm.
yeah. So this is there's definitely a part two to this then.
There could be like a whole series sequence.
Well, Mary, I'm gonna have you on as long as you want to come on because I think
Okay.
um, I'm learning from you. I'm growing, and I'm hoping the people that watch this they'll grow and learn as well, understanding what you're bringing to the table. I wanted to give you a chance to talk about any sort of website you got, donations coming to your website, or Cash App, or Venmo, or whatever it is, because I'm sure you take on donations. Is that correct? Or
I do on my so I do have a Donut of Soul
okay,
.us website,
yeah,
and I can send that to you. It
yeah,
does mostly talk about the aliens and well, no, I talk about all of it. I'm pretty open. I mix it all
yeah,
in because really it is all mixed in. It's everybody
right,
tries to
right,
separate it as decompartmentalization, but it's all real. It's all together. The
yep.
angels, you can't say uh are divine and they belong here because they don't live here, right? So that means they're aliens.
Good point. Not
I
from
mean, the
here.
fallen have been here for 25 million years. I'm pretty sure they've got a permanent residency, right? They're grandfathered in.
Grandfathered in. That's hilarious. They are grandfathered in.
I'm just saying.
Well, I'm let's see. I'm gonna get that Adona of
Mhm.
Soul.us. I'm gonna put it up on here, and then also I know you got tours coming up. The Matrix Rehab tour. You got any more of those coming up? I did check out one of yours, which is awesome.
I
Um,
do. Yeah, so I'm not sure the date yet. Maybe
yeah,
June or July.
that's cool.
In Las Vegas. I'm going to talk about the gene splicing,
Okay.
how they mutate humans. I'm a mutated. I've got a gene splice with the
Just some
jaguar
Nazi
DNA.
type stuff. That's some
Huh?
what's it called? That's some Nazi type stuff.
Atlantis? Yeah.
Atlantis was doing it before the Nazis, I guess, right? Von Briner, I
Yeah.
can't remember his name. So you got a lot going on that you haven't even tipped the top of the iceberg of what you
Right.
got. So that's
Well,
amazing. So
everybody
people,
does.
everybody does.
It's
That's
just you have
right.
to
You did
remember,
say that.
yeah.
Yes. So I could have been a super soldier too.
Or a soldier. There's different levels. There's the MK Alpha and then the MK Delta.
Okay.
Super soldiers are like the super or special forces group of
Hmm.
space military, and then
Right.
MK Alpha is the military. So
I've got some.
you do
I
have
think
your
I had a bleed through memory. I have a weird dream I'll share with you sometime. So
okay.
in space, it was crazy as shit. But anyways, I'll yeah, I'm gonna put this up lickety split, and then yeah, thank you so much for hollering at this channel.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm gonna end the recording, and then yeah, thank you so much, Mary. You're amazing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Peace.